But to your point about the mandate, there's amongst us libertarians, there's a discussion about the mandate and what it means. And did Trump really have a mandate last time? If you look at how many votes he won in the swing states, in the battleground states, did he really have a mandate? And does Biden really have a mandate? And I don't think either way they do, because not enough Americans are actually voting in the process, that they don't feel strongly enough for it to have a true mandate. But I will say I am concerned. Does the word fracking and does oil and gas actually have a mandate in the country? Because Biden did win Pennsylvania, and that was kind of a shocking thing, because the Trump campaign pounded hard on this fracking message, and he still persevered there. So are you concerned? Maybe we'll kind of wrap it up with this, but are you kind of concerned that maybe the oil and gas industry needs to spend, in my opinion, it's a 2-year race, because you got the midterms coming up, the next 2 years really pounding home that we save lives. That's always what I said for years, is that when I've been in DC and talking to these kind of progressives, they're like, oh, I'm concerned about the environment. I said, well, what percentage of the stuff that you see came from oil and gas? They're like, oh, I don't know, 10%, 20%, 30%. I'm like, how about 100? And they're like, oh, okay. Well, healthcare is really important. But the next 2 years, how do we really message it? Because I think that's really the race now.
Yeah. Well, so I don't want to sound like I'm defeated in this one. The narrative, until consumers feel the pain, even when I raised, there's a book that was written by Gregory Wrightstone, and some people I respect on Twitter were just going crazy when I said what he wrote in the book, which is, he wrote Inconvenient Facts, and one of the things he says is CO2 is a miracle gas, and that the warming of the planet leads to more plant growth. Plant growth leads to more food. Then you're bringing people out of poverty. We very clearly, from COVID and very clearly from our policy on climate change, we are not comfortable with trade-offs. We want to save everyone and not shut down the economy or whatever. And I think the unfortunate thing is the US consumer doesn't know what oil and gas does. And therefore, until it goes away and there's a crisis like there was in 2001 when we didn't think we had enough natural gas, then no one cares. We've also learned we're happy to lock down the US to save American lives, but we don't see the trickle-on effect of the billion people who've had no food and starving and no health care and whatever in third world countries, who are also the ones who are going to be brought out of poverty through energy.
Right.
And so until the US feels an incredible amount of pain and there's a humanitarian crisis that's built around 1 billion people starving with no electricity or civil war or whatever, I think it's just going to go this way. So companies need to shore up their balance sheet, do everything they can to mitigate, hope they're not on federal land and that Biden sees that the trade-offs are real, lobby the government to understand that the wind is not always blowing and sun is not always shining, but that doesn't mean we don't like it. Mm-hmm. It's just that you need a backup energy grid, and natural gas is the solution. And cars need 20 million, we consume 20 million barrels a day of crude in the US. 14 million of that is in transportation. And if we take 14 million barrels a day of oil off the grid because we go to electric, that means we need 14 million barrels of oil equivalent in electric generation, which can't all be wind and solar. So it's just a bad news story. And it's why I'm short E&Ps. I've been short for a long time. A day like today is extraordinarily painful because oil jumps 10% and Exxon jumps 15%. So you get crushed. But the core is the business doesn't work at 40. I don't see a catalyst to make it above 40. And there's enough headwinds in the US that I just don't see a business model for the next couple of years.